Okay, we're in the web services lecture. We just finished number 1. We're going to open up number 2, Ajax. So if I open this up, we're going to open up index.html. Now you're going to recognize this code from before. This is my Einstein quotes. And when we clicked on the button, we called the update info function and gave it a quote ID. Now this code was a lot shorter than the original Ajax request that we set up. Well, let me show you how to send data. So remember, we're sending the quote ID to the server. Let me show you how to send data using jQuery. Now in this example, I've already added the import, so we can write the jQuery GET request. Okay, I need to comment this code out. The top code and the bottom code are equivalent. Comment out right before the close bracket for the function call. So now with the GET request, I'm going to say where it's going to, so we're going to updateinfo.php. If I want to send data, it's going to be in the second parameter, which is optional, and the third parameter, which is a requirement, is the function call when that response is received. So here's my Ajax request. I'm going to do a GET request to updateinfo.php. I'm going to send this data, which we haven't put it there yet, and when it comes back, when I receive the response, it's going to call this function here, okay, which is this function on the onload. When the server sends a response, this function will get called. We're going to do the same thing as this here. So the data I want to send is the info ID. Now when I'm sending data with jQuery, it's going to be a JavaScript object. So I'm going to have my key value pair. So you see we send info ID equal to quote ID. So I'm going to do the same. Info ID in quotes colon quote ID. Okay, now the lowercase d's here, this one's capital, so I would switch this one to lowercase, make them the same, so you don't make a typo later. And usually, you'll see this is all on one line. Usually the first line will just say where it's going to. Then I'll separate this onto the next line, which is my parameters I'm sending. Now the third line will be the function call. So usually you'll split it up that looks like this. And all I do is change the info box, so ID info box, to the quote that we received back from the server. So I'll change the HTML to the quote or the response text from the server. So you'll see these lines of code here changed into, now it was one line of code, but we changed it to 1, 2, 3, 4 lines of code or 5 lines of code just to separate the code out to make it easier to read. So if I come back, open up number 2, here's my quote service. We're not printing anything out, so I can close the console. Click on quote 1, you'll see quote 1 returns, quote 2, quote 3, quote 4. Quote 5 was the default. Okay, so it's working. So when I make a GET request using jQuery, the first parameter is where that GET request is going. The second parameter is am I sending data or not. The third parameter is the function that gets called when the response has been received. And then of course I close that GET function, okay, which is this parenthesis here. Okay, now the code below and the code above are equivalent. You'll see how nice and clean this code is and how easy it is to write. I just import jQuery and use the jQuery GET function. Now in the next example, we're going to look at how we can send data using POST. So continue to the next example, continue to the next video for the next coding example.